Visions, letters, and weird-looking animals. Today on another episode of the Bible in 1 year with the Preacher's Husband. Today we're going to the book of Revelation, chapter 1 through 5. And tomorrow we're going through 6 through 11. So let's dive in. What do we get in Revelation? Well, it was written by John the Revelator. Who's that writing? John the Revelator. John the Apostle, as it says in verse 1, 4, and 9. This was written about 95 AD, so he would have been an old rickety dude by this time. So Jesus here, big picture, the Lord of all history, is going to return to earth, destroy all evil and all opposition to him, and bring the kingdom of God to its glorious culmination. That's pretty much the gist of it. Now, in summary, the book of Revelation previews its structure in chapter 1, verse 19, when it says, therefore, write what you have seen, what is, and what will take place after this. Now, John already had seen a vision of the exalted Son of Man clothed in power and majesty in chapter 1, and next he was told to write 7 letters to the churches, telling each of the state of its spiritual health. That was in chapters 2 and 3, as we're going to see today. And in the body of the book, chapter 4 through 22, are pretty much a series of visions in which the glorified Christ is revealed to John. He reveals events related to the end times, covering all that would take place after this, as it says. Now, all these chapters reveal God's judgment, represented under 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 bowls on the earth and on all those opposed to him, and the final triumph of the Lamb. Now the book ends with a vision of a new heaven and earth and John's plea for the Lord to come in chapter 21 and 22. So a little food for thought here on the book of Revelation. It finishes a story that started in Genesis. So Genesis focused on beginnings, and Revelation focuses on, I guess you could say, the consummation of it all. In Genesis, heaven and earth were created, and in Revelation, the new heaven and new earth appear. In Genesis, the sun and the moon appeared as the greater and lesser lights. In Revelation, there's no longer any need for the sun or the moon, for the Lamb himself is the light. So in Genesis, Eden was bounded by 4 rivers. In Revelation, 1 river flows from God's throne through the center of the city. In Genesis, God united Adam and Eve in marriage. In Revelation, the marriage supper of the Lamb unites Christ and the church. In Genesis, Satan appeared as the adversary, and in Revelation, Satan is cast into the lake of fire. Now in Genesis, sin entered the human race. In Revelation, all sin is done away with. In Genesis, death entered the human race. In Revelation, there will be no more death. In Genesis, the earth was placed under a curse. In Revelation, the curse is lifted, as we see in chapter 22, verse 3. In Genesis, angelic beings blocked the entrance to the garden. In Revelation, 12 angels are stationed at the never-closing gates of the New Jerusalem. And in Genesis, humans were barred from the tree of life, while in Revelation, the tree of life bears fruit all year round for all the nations. So my takeaway here is that all that was lost in Adam's fall is going to be restored in magnificent perfection. And since Jesus Christ will return, we are always to be ready for that great event. Now, in chapter 1's kind of his prologue, and it says in verse 3, blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear the words of this prophecy and keep what is written in it, because the time is near. There, I did it. I read it out loud. Now, these visions, they just bring about these amazing images in my mind, and I love to see artist renditions of John's writing here and putting basically that picture that John puts into your mind onto a platform, as you see here in the picture of when he says, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. I saw 7 golden lampstands. There they are. The Son of Man, there he is in a robe with a golden sash. The hair of his head was white as wool, white as snow. His feet were like fine bronze. He had 7 stars in his right hand. You know, I just keep thinking about this. This is similar to what the image is in my mind when I read this and I see this in my own mind. And then we get to chapter 2 and 3, and of course this is about the 7 letters that he writes. He writes these 7 letters. He writes them to Ephesus, to Smyrna, to Pergamum, to Thyatira, I guess you would say, and Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. So those are the 7 churches that he writes to. And in general, each letter includes 5 different things, right? The first thing it includes is the characteristic of a risen Christ drawn from the vision that we read in chapter 1, verse 12 through 18. And the second one is a commendation of the church, although not the churches at Sardis and Laodicea. They didn't get commendations at all. Third one is criticism of the church's shortcomings, although not of the churches at Smyrna and Philadelphia. Clearly they were doing pretty good, and how to correct these shortcomings, of course. Number 4 is a command to listen what the Spirit says to the churches. And number 5, a commitment to the persevering spiritual one who conquers. So that is the 5 things that are included in each of these 7 letters that he wrote in chapter 2 and 3. So we get to chapter 4. And here we are with another stunning visual, the throne room of heaven. As I read through this, this is the closest picture that I get to what I'm envisioning with the folks sitting around. It says, immediately I was in the spirit. There was a throne in heaven and someone was seated on it. The one there had the spirit of jasper and carnelian stone. And there's all these different listings of what was there. The creatures were covered with eyes, the ox, the eagle, the lion, all of those different those 4 different creatures that were there. And this was just an interesting visual that I saw. And then we get to chapter 5. And of course, the lion and the lamb is here. The lamb takes the scroll. This is introducing us into this section that we're going to read tomorrow about the scroll and those 7 seals that were on the scroll, right? And who is worthy to open this scroll and to break its seals? Well, according to John, no one was found to be worthy at first, but then they were talking about it, and the elders there said to him, do not weep. Look, the lion from the tribe of Judah, the root of David has conquered, so that he is able to open the scroll and its 7 seals. And then I saw one like a slaughtered lamb standing in the midst of the throne and the 4 living creatures and among the elders. He had 7 horns and 7 eyes. And I thought, man, that's going to be a weird looking lamb with 7 eyes and 7 horns, right? But there was a reason for that. The 7 horns and 7 eyes, they were the 7 spirits of God sent into all the earth is what they represented. And the lamb is worthy. Of course, you see in verses 9 and 10 here, it says, you are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, because you were slaughtered and you purchased people for God by your blood from every tribe and language and people and nation. You made them a kingdom and priests to our God, and they will reign on earth. That is Jesus. Of course, worthy is the lamb who was slain. So I hope this has helped you a little bit in your studies today. If it has, click the like button, subscribe button. Of course, click the little jingle bell so you get notified the next time I upload a video, which will be tomorrow. We're going to talk about them 7 seals tomorrow as well. And I'll give you a map tomorrow, kind of a timeline, so to speak, of Revelation in here as well. I may even put a link to it in the comments tomorrow in tomorrow's video, so we can kind of follow along with the structure of Revelation as we go through the next couple of days. And if you're rumbling with me on Rumble, hit that little boxing glove, and I'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of the Bible in 1 Year with the Preacher's Husband. See you then.